My name was Michael Carter, and until I turned 30, my life looked like the picture of stability. I grew up in Orlando, Florida, and after college, I quickly found myself working as a financial manager at a mid-sized local bank. Nothing glamorous, nothing extraordinary, but it was safe, and for a while, safe was all I wanted. I had a wife, Lisa, who'd been my college sweetheart, and together we had a daughter, Emily. She was 6 back then, just starting first grade, full of energy and endless questions. Our house stood in a quiet neighborhood with palm trees in the yard, and every Saturday morning we'd hear the sound of kids' bikes on the pavement. We had 2 cars in the driveway, and life moved at a measured, predictable rhythm. My work at the bank was, frankly, monotonous. Every day, I'd sit behind my desk, reviewing balance sheets, calculating risk profiles for loans, and writing long reports. I came in at 9, left at 5, and nothing really changed. My colleagues were nice enough, but everything felt gray and repetitive. Some people might call it stability. I called it suffocating. Sometimes, late at night, after Lisa and Emily went to bed, I'd sit alone in the living room and stare at the ceiling fan. I wondered if this was it. Was I going to spend my whole life reading numbers in dimly lit offices, living the same day over and over? I had everything people said I should want: a family, a job, a roof over my head. And yet I felt an emptiness, a quiet itch that I couldn't scratch. It was at one of those mandatory company parties, the kind where everyone pretends to enjoy themselves while really just waiting to go home. I was standing near the bar, sipping on a watered-down drink, when I noticed a guy laughing louder than anyone else. That was Eddie. He was new at the bank, and he had this restless energy about him. While everyone else looked like they'd been carved from gray stone, Eddie was alive, sharp-eyed, and always ready with a story. When I finally got introduced to him, he didn't waste a second. "You know," he said, leaning in as if sharing a secret, "I used to work at the stock exchange, New York. Total madness. Phones ringing off the hook, people screaming at each other, screens flashing like Christmas lights. You'd either sink or swim. I loved it." I asked him why he left, and he laughed. "Numbers, man. I could never keep up with the numbers. It's like being thrown into the ocean with sharks, and I realized I wasn't a shark, so I quit. Ended up here instead. Easy job, easy paycheck." He made it sound like another planet compared to our bank's sleepy hallways. I laughed along, but inside me, something stirred. The way he described it, it sounded terrifying, yes, but also alive. A week later, Eddie sent me a short email. "Party at my place Saturday. Come by. Bring beer." I wasn't sure if I wanted to go, but part of me was curious, and so I said yes. That decision would change everything. Eddie's apartment was buzzing with people, loud music, laughter, bottles clinking. But what struck me most wasn't the party, it was the people. They weren't like my bank colleagues. These were sharper, quicker, with an edge in their voices. It didn't take long before I realized these were his old friends from the stock exchange. At first, I listened quietly. They talked about stocks, companies, and trades with a kind of passion I'd never seen in the banking world. At one point, a tall guy named Mark started boasting about a company he was investing in. "They're about to explode," he said, grinning. I couldn't help myself. "Actually, they won't," I said without thinking. "Their financial indicators are terrible. Debt is climbing, profit margins are shrinking. It looks shiny, but give it a year, and the whole thing will crack." The room went quiet. Mark looked at me like I had grown a second head. "You saw all that just like that?" "Yeah," I shrugged. "That's what I do every day. I read reports. I know when the numbers don't add up." The others leaned in, intrigued. They pulled me over to a laptop and started throwing companies at me. I analyzed each one quickly, pointing out the red flags they had overlooked. By the end, they weren't laughing anymore. They were nodding. One of them, half smiling, said, "Hey, banker boy, you should come work with us." Everyone laughed, including me. But something deep inside whispered, Why not? A week later, curiosity got the better of me. I visited their office. It wasn't anything like the bank. Instead of quiet cubicles and hushed voices, the place was alive. Phones ringing, papers flying, screens glowing with charts and numbers. People were shouting, laughing, swearing. It was chaos, but the kind of chaos that made my blood race. The boss, a tough man named Frank, looked me over. "You're Eddie's friend? Fine. You get 2 months, trial period. Sink or swim." The first few days were overwhelming. I had the financial knowledge, but trading wasn't just about numbers. It was about instincts, nerves, timing. I made mistakes. My hands shook the first time I placed a real order. The guys teased me mercilessly. "Careful, Orlando, you're sweating through your shirt." But slowly I adjusted. I started spotting trends others missed. I wasn't the fastest, but I was precise. I'd see warning signs hidden in quarterly reports or subtle shifts in data. My calls began paying off. One day, I told the team to hold back from a hot stock everyone was buying. They laughed at me, until a week later, it crashed. After that, they started listening. The adrenaline was addictive. Every win felt like electricity in my veins. Every trade was a gamble with real stakes. For the first time in years, I felt alive. And I wanted more. By the time a year had passed, I was no longer the quiet banker from Orlando. I had become part of the team, respected for my eye for numbers. My trades were consistent, my confidence growing. But with every win, my hunger grew too. One night, my colleague Freddie leaned back in his chair, grinning at me across the messy office. "You're good, Mike, real good. But if you really want to play the big game, this isn't it. Orlando's a pond. You're ready for the ocean, Wall Street." The idea lodged itself in my head and wouldn't leave. Wall Street, New York, the center of it all. The skyscrapers, the billions traded every hour, the legends I had read about. Suddenly, my victories in Orlando felt small. At home, I brought it up to Lisa. She froze. "New York? Michael, that's huge. Emily just started school. We have family here. Our life is here." I held her hand. "Lisa, this is my chance, our chance. Imagine what I could do there. Better income, better schools for Emily, a better life for all of us. Don't you want that too?" She hesitated. I could see the doubt in her eyes, but also the trust she had in me. After a week of late-night talks, tears, and promises, she agreed. The move was chaotic. Packing up our house, saying goodbye to neighbors, watching Emily hug her best friend goodbye. It all felt surreal. But as we drove north, I felt something else rising in me, anticipation. The closer we got to New York, the more alive I felt. Orlando had been the start. Wall Street would be the proving ground. Wall Street was everything Eddie promised, and more. The first time I walked into that trading floor, I felt like I had stepped into the beating heart of the world. The noise was deafening. Phones slammed onto desks. Traders shouted over each other. Numbers scrolled endlessly across giant screens. It wasn't an office. It was a battlefield. And I loved it. At first, I stumbled. The pace was brutal. Seconds mattered. Hesitation meant loss. But soon, I adapted. My background in analyzing reports gave me an edge. Where others chased rumors, I stuck to data. Slowly, I built a reputation. "Carter sees things nobody else does," people said. My first big win in New York came when I spotted an accounting irregularity in a major tech company. Everyone was buying, hyped by headlines, but I told my team to sell. A month later, the company's scandal broke. We made millions. Suddenly, I wasn't just another trader. I was the guy from Florida who called it. Success snowballed. My paychecks ballooned. Bonuses piled up. We moved into a luxury apartment overlooking Central Park. Emily was enrolled in one of the best private schools in Manhattan. Lisa started shopping on Fifth Avenue. From the outside, it looked like we were living the dream. But the dream came with a price. I started working later and later. At first, I'd miss dinner, then weekends, then birthdays. "I'll make it up to you," I'd tell Lisa, kissing her forehead before heading back to the office. But the truth was, I wasn't working for them anymore. I was working for the rush, for the thrill of the next win. I was living on adrenaline and slowly forgetting what it meant to live at all. The first real crack came one rainy night. I came home past midnight. The apartment was dark, but I found Lisa sitting at the kitchen table, awake, her arms crossed. "Do you even know what Emily drew in class today?" she asked, her voice quiet but sharp. I frowned, exhausted. "What?" "She drew our family, me and her. You weren't in it." Her words cut deeper than any loss on the market. I tried to brush it off, muttering about deadlines and pressure, but the truth was, I wasn't there. Not for Lisa, not for Emily. The signs piled up. Emily stopped waiting up for me. Lisa stopped calling during the day. At home, silence filled the rooms where laughter used to be. But every morning, I still put on my suit and went back to the floor, telling myself I was doing it all for them. Inside, though, I knew I was addicted. Addicted to the chaos, to the rush, to the feeling of being at the center of the storm. One evening, as I stared at the glowing city skyline from my office, Eddie came by. He'd moved up too, though never as high as me. He clapped me on the shoulder. "Careful, Mike. This place eats people alive. Don't let it eat you." I laughed it off, but his words stayed with me. Then came the crash. The late 2000s shook Wall Street to its core. One week, I was riding high, profitable trades, fat bonuses, confidence unshakable. But the next, the market turned on us like a wild animal. Stocks plummeted, trades failed, panic spread like fire. Phones that once rang nonstop went silent. Colleagues who had seemed untouchable disappeared overnight. I fought hard, using every ounce of skill I had, but the truth was, no one could escape completely. Losses piled up. Sleepless nights turned into days of dread. At home, Lisa reached her limit. One night, while Emily was asleep, she looked me straight in the eye. "Michael, we don't need more money. We don't need the big apartment or the private school. We need you. I need my husband. Emily needs her father. If this is what success looks like, I don't want it." Her voice shook, but her eyes were steady. For once, I couldn't argue. I looked around at the penthouse, the expensive furniture, the city lights glittering outside, and I felt empty. I had climbed so high, only to realize I was standing alone. That night, I knew something had to change. Leaving New York wasn't easy. Pride told me to stay, to fight, to rebuild. But my heart knew better. We packed our things, left the city behind, and drove south, back to Orlando, back to the place where it all began. I found work at a small brokerage firm. It wasn't glamorous. The office was quiet, the trades smaller, the paychecks far from what I once earned. But for the first time in years, I had dinners with my family. I walked Emily to school. I sat on the porch with Lisa on warm evenings, talking about nothing and everything. It felt like loss, like I had abandoned the battlefield for a sleepy town. But slowly, I realized it wasn't loss. It was freedom. The weight lifted from my shoulders, the constant noise gone. In its place was peace. One evening, Emily hugged me tightly and whispered, "Daddy, I'm glad you're home." That single sentence meant more to me than any bonus I ever earned. Now, years later, I look back and ask myself, was it worth it? The rush, the skyscrapers, the millions? Part of me says yes, it shaped me, taught me, pushed me to limits I never knew. But the bigger part of me knows the truth. None of it compares to hearing my daughter laugh at the dinner table or holding Lisa's hand as we watched the sunset. Wall Street gave me excitement, but it almost took everything else away. Success, I learned, means nothing if you lose the people who make life worth living. So I traded in chaos for calm. And for the first time in my life, I finally understood what it meant to be truly rich.